I wanted to make this video a lot sooner when that last preview came out, but then I started playing Tears of the Kingdom, and I just had to pour all of my free time into that for the last couple weeks. That's why the only thing I posted in the last few weeks is that croissant community post. Sorry guys. I'm back now though. Okay, let's talk about 2.2 for a second. We're expecting it to come out pretty soon. I think the general consensus is August 13th. As far as I know, it's solely based on the fact that that will be GD's 10th anniversary, which to me just means it's based on wishful thinking, but who knows. Maybe RobTop will deliver on community expectations for once. Either way, the general vibe in the community when it comes to 2.2 is excitement. On some level, I share that feeling. It's been so long after all. And 2.2 does offer things that I think are really cool. But at the same time, I kind of dread this update. Let me run you through my problems with it, because I don't see them expressed too often. Let's start with something that shouldn't be too controversial to take. Something to ensnare you into my line of thinking a little more. The 2.2 update is just way too big. There's way too much shit. Way too much shit. You've got a new game mode, new gameplay elements, new editor features, but on top of that there's also the multiplayer versus mode, I think. And on top of that, you've got platformer mode, which we'll get to later, and all of its associated features. So why is this a problem? Bigger is better, right? Well, one of the problems with this has been staring us in the face for over half a decade already, that being the time it has taken since the last update. 2.2 has been in development for so long that it exceeds the entire lifespan of the rest of the game. I'm not going to profess to know anything about RobTop's personal life choices or anything, but as a developer, this is just bad time management on his part. If he hadn't succumbed to feature creep like this, 2.2 could easily have been split into 4 or 5 updates that were released once a year. The thing you have to realize is that making an update bigger makes things exponentially more difficult to implement, not linearly. Every time you introduce a new moving part into the equation, you multiply the possible interactions you have to account for. Currently, 2.2 consists of so many moving parts that it's honestly no surprise it's taken RobTop this long to get anywhere with it. Not only is it bad on a time management basis, but the added complexity also increases the chances of annoying or potentially dangerous bugs slipping through the cracks. Speaking of bugs, by the way, okay, so I'm editing this video and there's some concerning information that's been brought to my attention. Okay, so get this. I'm sure you know about the bug that causes the robot to jump super high into the air when you jump into a jump pad. Yeah, that's not intentional. But plenty of people have used this mechanic in their levels. And it arguably just makes the robot game mode more interesting. I'm not a huge fan of the robot myself, but you know, this is cool, right? It's cool to see the robot jump up so high. So guess what? RobTop is fixing this bug, which might not seem too bad, but bear in mind that this will break a bunch of levels that use it. You will not be able to get the coin in Dear Nostalgists anymore, for example. And you will also not be able to get the coin in Star Factory anymore. On top of that, okay, so I'm gonna be honest, I don't really understand this one that well. But essentially, in Mega Hack, you can scale objects down into the negatives, which isn't normally possible, but in the new update it will be, and RobTop is changing the hitboxes for negatively scaled objects. I don't really get the specifics, but I have it on good authority, after listening to some people who know what they're talking about, that this is basically a pointless change that will break a bunch of levels for no reason. Another concerning development is the single portal, which is the counterpart to the dual portal. Apparently, in 2.2, RobTop is making it so that the single portal will always recenter your game mode for some reason, which it doesn't normally do. And I think he's doing this because it leads to like inconsistent spacing in the game modes sometimes. But well, I'm sure you know the deal with it at this point. Second verse, same as the first, this will also break a bunch of levels. Bowser Vortex being given as an example here. So yeah, these changes are all pointless. These are pointless changes. Why? I can't fathom why RobTop felt the need to change anything about these mechanics. Like seriously, who was complaining about the robot jump glitch? Who was complaining about the single portal having inconsistent spacing? I bet most people didn't even notice. Well, anyway, let's just move on. Continue with the video. Remember, RobTop is just one guy doing everything. He doesn't have a team of developers or game testers or anything like that can afford to manage something of this magnitude. Geometry Dash has grown a lot over the years, and it's honestly baffling RobTop hasn't hired anyone to help him. But that's another problem entirely. Let's keep our focus on 2.2 specifically. Giving the community annual, smaller updates isn't just better from a game development perspective either. It's also better for the community. Giving us a consistent drip feed of new stuff to play around with helps to keep things fresh. I'm sure I don't have to tell you how much better it would have been if we got the swing copter and the new jump pads in 2018, camera controls and the new editor features in 2019, multiplayer mode in 2021, and if platform mode were scrapped. Wait, getting ahead of myself. Regardless, you get the point, right? So that's point number 1. It's too big. Point number 2. What the fuck is this? From the previews we've seen so far, Explorers is shaping up to be a really terrible level, and that's because of the features it introduces. Camera controls and the scale trigger, for example, are genuinely great additions that I've wanted for a long time. This, on the other hand... Okay, let me illustrate what I mean with an example. Okay, so video games have certain rules, right? You know, when you're playing Mario, when you press A, you're going to jump, and when you press B, you're going to do a punch. This is always consistent. You might do different jumps and punches based on context, but those rules are consistent too. In Geometry Dash, there's only one button, so what you can do is solely based on the situation you're in. Game modes and jump rings determine your actions. A yellow jump ring makes you jump, a blue one will switch gravity every time. The physics might work out differently depending on the game mode you're in, but again, those rules are consistent too. So, in light of that, what the fuck is this? How am I supposed to know which jump rings will send me backwards? How am I supposed to know which walls I can walk up on? How am I supposed to know where my character will appear when it goes off screen? You don't know, it's trial and error. Imagine playing Mario and you press A to jump, and then he just does a kick instead, out of nowhere. You don't have to imagine it, you can already play this game, it's Mario Chaos Edition. RobTop has made Geometry Dash Chaos Edition. Okay, it's not that bad, at least the rules don't change between attempts. But they do change between levels. Seriously, is there something wrong with teleporters or something? Why are they completely absent when you're getting teleported around so much? Like, teleporters are in the game already, they serve a purpose, right? For the sake of consistency, please use them. Isn't trial and error the name of the game, though? People already spend hundreds of attempts beating levels. Why is this different? The thing is, it matters why you're spending so many attempts on a level. I remember back when I first played the game, Time Machine took me hundreds of attempts. I could not beat it. And the reason I couldn't beat it was because I was bad at the game. Everything was laid out before me, clear as day. It was simply my own inability to make the jumps that was holding me back. Every attempt served to teach me about the game and its mechanics, served to make me a better player. It taught me how to gauge the distance of my jump. It taught me how to get a feel for the ship controls, which are useful things to know. In Explorers, memorizing which walls you can walk up and which jump rings will send you the other way do not make you a better player, because this knowledge is not applicable to other levels. It's only useful in Explorers. A good level will telegraph what's going to happen with its design, but that's all up to the creator. Like, the Sub-Zero levels are a lot better at this, but what the fuck is Explorers doing? You have to understand, this isn't just personally annoying to me, it's bad game design to have these inconsistent and seemingly random mechanics in the level, especially because it's going to be one of the main levels, which is supposed to teach the player about the game. Online levels have a bit more creative liberty, but to be honest, I do not trust the community with these features at all. A lot of creators haven't even figured out how to use the move trigger yet, and that's comparatively easy to use. I'm not sure if I've said this in a video before, but I have stated before that the alpha trigger may be placing too much trust in the hands of creators, that it's just too powerful, too much responsibility to bear, that no man should have all that power. Because in the wrong hands, it can be used for great evil, intentionally or not. It's like the Triforce, bestowing immense power upon the bear in accordance with their nature. I have warmed up to the alpha trigger because it does require a substantial amount of malice or incompetence to really ruin a level with it. Plenty of good levels are able to use it well. If we liken the alpha trigger to the Triforce, then the features shown in Explorers are Pandora's box. Simply implementing these features into your level is going to require a lot of foresight and consideration to do well. Like a rag soaked in nitroglycerin, it must be handled with extreme caution. One wrong move can destroy everything you've worked so hard to create. Maybe I'm being overly dramatic though. Maybe the community will be fine handling volatile explosives. But when I look at explorers, I think my fears are completely validated. I don't want Geometry Dash levels to look like this in the future, and I don't want explorers to set that precedent. Aside for things like the new game mode and the purple jump ring, which is fucking dope, by the way, I think most of the 2.2 features are actively bad for the game, and I would rather not see them at all. I don't want people to have access to these things, because 99% of the time they're just going to make levels worse. Alright, so now for the hottest take in this video. I think platformer mode is a terrible idea. This is a very contentious thing to say in this community. Let me explain though. The main issue with platformer mode is that it's conceptually misguided. Geometry Dash is a rhythm-based action platformer. I think. Some people will get very upset if you call it a rhythm game, but I think it should be uncontroversial to say that it's rhythm-based. Well, whatever. The specifics are unimportant. Point is, levels in this game will use their music as a guideline for their gameplay and visuals. That concept is at the core of Geometry Dash's identity, and it has been that way since the game's inception. Platformer mode completely breaks that in half. Like, it's just not what the game is about. It takes the main appeal of the game and just discards it to become a generic platformer instead. Geometry Dash offers a unique experience with its mechanics, something you can easily pick up on and play, and then go on to spend thousands of hours mastering. This is something unique to Geometry Dash. You think I'm gonna play Super Mario Run for 2,000 hours? Didn't think so. On that same note though, do you think I'm gonna play GD's platformer mode over Mario Maker? Mario Maker has a vast array of mechanics, it has excellent controls, it has an active and thriving community. Depending on how it turns out, Geometry Dash only has one or two of these things. Like, all of GD's mechanics were created with this gameplay concept in mind. The fact that the player is always moving in accordance with the song. Translating that into a freeform platformer context just isn't always going to work. Like, have you seen how the wave controls in platformer? That shit looks asinine. From what I've seen so far, platformer mode is just going to be finicky in general. I have a hard time believing it's going to be any fun at all. Of course, I haven't played it yet, but I have played lots of other platformers. I've played countless Mario games. I've played Celeste, I've played Pizza Tower, Hollow Knight, Shantae, A Hat in Time, Banjo-Kazooie. I know what a good freeform platformer game looks like, and Geometry Dash does not look like it. All of these games were built from the ground up with free movement in mind, except Geometry Dash. It begs the question, if RobTop is so set on making Geometry Dash into a freeform platformer, why not release it as a spin-off game? Call it, I don't know, Geometry Jump or something. RobTop has a habit of releasing spin-off games anyway, so it's not like it's out of the ordinary. Platformer mode is so substantially different, such a departure from the main game's core mechanics, that it's warranted to release it as a separate game. If it's successful, great. If it flops, oh well, at least it won't be dead weight on the main game then. I can hear you saying, you don't have to play platformer levels if you don't want to though. And it's true, you don't have to play bad levels in general. And you know what? I don't do that. I avoid bad levels because playing them isn't fun. Like, having bad levels in the game is just going to be bad for the game in general. That goes for any game. Platformer mode should be released as a spin-off game regardless though, not just because I think it's bad. Like I said, it's so distinct from the base game, so different at its very core. It's just a different game entirely. A game I'm not interested in, but for the people who are, they should be able to download it separately. I don't think I'm being unreasonable in saying that. Thus concludes my thoughts about the upcoming update. I don't know how well people will take this video, so please don't hesitate to let me know what you think. I am genuinely interested. Either way, thanks for at least hearing what I have to say. If you post a comment, I'll be sure to return the favor. So yeah, see you next time.